Shalom and welcome. My name is Adiel. I'll be your host today, and I welcome everybody to today's discussion brought to you by the Universal Temple of Israel. Let us go ahead and begin first by giving honor, glory, and thanks unto our Heavenly Father, Yudewape Yahweh, via the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew. Tefillah. Abenu Shabashamayim, Yikade Shemeaka, Tabo Makuteaka, Yazerizonka. Kibashamayim came Ba'aretz, Elekim Kukenu, Tain Lanu Hayom. Usat Lanu, All Katienu, Kimoshiso King, Gamanaknu, Lykotim Lanu, Baal Tefienu, Ladeni Sayon. King Asenu, Min Hara, Kilaka, Amamlaha, Beagivara, Beatifiereth, Leolame, Olamim, Sila. Alright, praise today, Wape. Let us go ahead and begin. Today's class is actually something we've talked about in the past. We've taught in classes many years ago, but we thought it'd be something we need to bring forward into today because it's very important. Things I've been noticing, and I think it's time to come back into this, right? So, one of the things I have to make sure the family is aware of, right? In edifying family, this is part of it, right? Edifying means to build up, it means to fortify, it means to strengthen. And so with this, I edify all the listening family, right? We have to be mindful, right? Coming into the high holy seasons, we have to be mindful of what we eat, right? We obviously teach the family this in a literal sense, and the law teaches us this as well. But we have to understand the figurative or the spiritual understanding of what it is to eat. We have to be mindful that we have to be very careful of what we eat, because just like physically, right, when we eat food physically, we incorporate the structure of those things into ourselves, right? So if we eat good food, our body is nourished, our body is able to heal itself, and is able to function the way that the Creator Yahweh designed us to function. But when we eat bad food, things that we should not eat, unseemly things, unclean things, then it begins to interfere with proper and intended function, right? So just like our body physically has to eat, our mind has to eat as well, right? And so we eat via the communications that we have, right? Let's go ahead and take this back. We have to think about the garden, right? We think about the garden. In the first instance, we talked about eating was with the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Adam, as well as Eve, were instructed not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They were allowed to eat of all the other trees in the garden, but they were not allowed to touch that particular tree. Now, those of you who've been with us long enough understand that this is an analogy. The story of the garden is an analogy for what occurred in the beginning. And we are not permitted to touch the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? And everything you see wrong in the world today is a result of us having eaten from that tree, right? It began to corrupt the original intent in the Creator Yahweh's creation. Now, He's not the Most High for no reason. He understood very well how He created us and what we needed in order to flourish. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not what we needed. So let's go ahead and go to Genesis. We'll go to Genesis chapter 2. And let's see here. We'll go to verse 16 and 17. And it reads, "And the Lord Yahweh commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Understand that we're talking about the garden. We're talking about Genesis, so we have to break something down really quickly. We already know that a day does not necessarily represent a 24-hour period. It just means some definite period of time. So he's saying here that in this period of time, you shall surely die. Because we know that there was no record of death prior to the eating of this fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That we were intended to live forever, to live as little gods, as children of the Most High, God Yahweh, in the perfection that he intended, that he created us in. And it was through the original sin, right? So the sin started from the conversation that was had between Eve and the serpent. So the sin began in this conversation. So we know conversation and communication can beget these things, right? And we know that if we're talking spiritually, conversation and communication feeds the mind, right? So let's get into a little bit. We're gonna get into a little bit of that, but understand that fruit is like a philosophy. You eat of a particular philosophy, and the way you move, the way you act, the way you carry yourself tends to reflect that philosophy. Just like I said, you eat good food, your body exists in good health. You eat bad food, then you start to become sluggish and weak, and you can see upon a person's countenance bad food. And we see that in the story concerning Daniel. We saw that very clearly. Daniel rejected the king's meat and ate only pulse, which is produce, and drank only water. And so his countenance was very fair. Whereas the countenance of those who eat the king's meat and drank of his liquor did not look so good. So that right there was an example of you are what you eat, right? That's just not a saying, it's the truth. So philosophically and spiritually, we become what we eat. And what we eat mentally and spiritually is our conversation, right? The stuff we consume. The Hebrew word to eat is a call. That root is a call. Aleph, Kaf, Lamed. Okay? And this particular root means to consume. Now, nothing is a coincidence. Understand that coincidences don't exist. There is a reason why. Not here with the squirrels today. There's a reason why when we do social media, right, or any type of media, movies, music, whatever, the phrase they use is consuming media. Because the music you listen to, the things you watch, the conversations that you entertain through social media, because this is sort of the granddaddy of them all, right? Social media, because it's just everything there. You get the music, you get clips of things you watch, but you get the conversation that you entertain. All of those things come to shape us mentally and spiritually. And I've observed these days, for those of you who know, if you know, you know, as the clock is counting down, there's been a lot of communication, a lot of evil communication, and a lot of it, man, is laced up in what appears to be good. And you find a lot of people are consuming this unbeknownst to them what the true intent of this communication is. And it's not for good. The true intent is division. It's for confusion and division. And a lot of our people, men and women alike, are consuming this. And it's destroying their personal lives, destroying their relationships. It's destroying their finances. It's destroying their relationship and their ability to reconcile to the Most High God, Yahweh. Right? let's get into that. This is a couple scriptures we're going to touch on to that reinforce what I'm saying. 1 Corinthians 15 and 33. First Corinthians 15 and 33. And it reads, "Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners." This is one we always grew up with. And I want to add to that because it goes both ways. It's not just the things, the communications that you take in, but the ones that you put out as well. Right? Because we know that it's not just what goes into a man that defiles him, it's what comes out. Because what comes out is evidence of what has taken root in you. We take in all sorts of things all the time, but what comes out of you, this was a spiritual thing when this was spoken, right, by the Son of Man. What comes out of you is evidence of what has taken root inside of you, right? Because out of the abundance of the heart doth the mouth speak. And when you start speaking evil, that means that's what's taken root in you, and that's what your heart is full of. So let's go to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Ephesians 4 and 29. "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers." Here we go. I'm going to go into one more scripture before I start going off a little bit on what I have to say concerning all of these things. The next verse we're going to go to is Joshua 1 and 8, another one we grew up with. Joshua 1 and 8. And it reads, "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success." It told you very early on, take into your mind the things within this book of the law. Because when you do it, your way will be prosperous and you'll have good success. So that means, conversely, if you do not take in what is in this book, right? If you don't take in what's in the book of the law and the prophets, you won't have good success and your way won't be prosperous. I remember there was a song, and there was a time back when songs used to have spiritual sort of meanings and messages. There was a song, if I'm not mistaken, by a group called Mr. President. And one of the lyrics in this song was basically something along the lines of all the prophets, and we should read everything that they had to say. And it was like a dance song. It was kind of a club song, but it noted this, and this whole song was about everything we're doing and how we're hurting one another. We're seeing our brothers in need and pain, and we're not doing anything about it. And so the remedy that the lyricist placed in it was to read all the prophets, all of them, and do what was in them. And so right here in this particular verse, it's saying the exact same thing. The solution to these problems that we are having is due to the fact that we've taken on all these different philosophies. We started eating all of these fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And we eat them because of the good, and it tastes good. And see, we're programmed to naturally gravitate towards that which is good, right? And as a bit of segue, you ever wonder why your kids like things that are sweet? Because the breast milk, which is food for the child, has a sweetness to him. And the fruit, which are very easy to digest, very easy to eat, and nutritious, are also sweet. So the child eats these things early in life, and it becomes accustomed to them. But see, what the devil does is he takes and he isolates the sweet out of different things and concentrates that sweet, and then he mixes it with a bunch of things that have no nutrition whatsoever. And then by concentrating those sweets and mixing it with non-nutritious foods, he's able to hijack the reward center in your brain and have you seeking after things that are no good for you. And so this translates over to adults, in that he uses, right, the enemy will use things that appear good to us, and then he'll sneak in an evil, right? The serpent did this in the garden. He used the truth about why, one of the reasons why the Most High Yahweh did not want us to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but then he laced it with the lie and said, you shall not die. So this is what's occurring. This is what we see. You have communications that are going on, and people are consuming these communications that prey on our natural responses, right? They prey on the traumas that women experience. They prey on the disappointments, right, that men experience. And they use those things, they leverage those things against us, right? Not only against us as individuals, they leverage those things against us as a community, right? As a nation, to divide us from one another, right? And they come at you under the pretense of caring about your well-being, making sure you don't get hurt again, right? Making sure that you are prepared for all that you are going to face, right? It has men out there who, if we go back to the Garden of Eden, men, in seeing themselves in their queens, right, in their women, trusted them without question. Right? Even to this day, men, when they see a woman, right, and this goes for mankind in general, but specifically for men, they see a woman and they trust that woman with all their being. They're not suspicious, right? And that's the way it was in the garden, because they see themselves in them. They trust them. And when they're betrayed, they're not able to trust women properly ever again. And then they don't feel like maybe that woman deserves that treatment like a queen. And there are evil forces out there that prey upon these mistrusts, and they teach men to guard themselves, right? To guard their rib where their Eve was supposed to be guarded, right? They teach them to guard their rib by treating women like trash, like pieces of meat, like nothing more than physical pleasures. And then these men go on to misuse and abuse women, right? And then the devil comes along and he then preys upon women who have been hurt, who in their natural state will seek a man that is going to lead the way righteously, right? Who's going to lead the way according to what the Creator Yahweh ordained them to lead, in the manner in which he ordained them to lead. So they'll follow what that man has to say and what he has to do, right? And upon being hurt, these women will develop calluses and scars emotionally, which won't let them open up to another man properly. And then in their attempts to keep from being hurt in that same way again, they allow these individuals to come along and teach them ways in which never to submit again. Do not listen. Do not heed. Instead, you dominate and you browbeat, right? You become hardened and tough, and you no longer show your generally softer feminine side. You become masculine and forceful. And they teach you that under the pretense of trying to protect you. But understand, they do not care about you. Men, they don't care about you either. That is the reason why in their media, they promote endlessly violence against men. You know what I'm talking about. Those of you who have children, you pray for your sons because the society is vicious and heartless when it comes to your sons. Your sons can be killed in the streets, shot down, beat, and they don't care. And you look at your innocent sons. You see the innocence still in them and just know that they're walking into a world that's been taught to glorify violence against men. You see it in the media. People laugh and they actually go to be entertained watching movies where men get blown away left and right. There's whole movies, series that are based purely upon blowing men away left and right. And you don't see women being killed. I mean, for good reason, women and children being killed. It's naturally repulsive. It is naturally repulsive to the human being to watch children being hurt and your women being hurt. So that's a bit of a stretch. And they don't attempt that, but they do. They have conditioned you to be numbed and desensitized towards violence against men. Why? Because they seek themselves to be violent against your men and your sons and to cut off the head of your communities. This is how the colonizing mindset is, the supremacist mindset. They always go after the head. Decapitation strategies. Those of you who are watching this, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen this sort of thing happen twice now. That is their tactic. Go after the head. And that's why they've done this. Women, they don't care about you either. They're not boosting you up to be strong, independent women because they care about you. They're not really wanting you to be strong and independent. What they're really asking you to do is to reject your other half. Men, they're asking you to do the same thing. Reject your other half by treating them like meat. But women, they're asking you to reject your other half because they know that ultimately your community will rot from the inside out when you do that. We saw that in the Exodus when it talked about the midwives. The edict was given down to the midwives to kill the sons when they came out. And unfortunately, many of our women literally are participating in this behavior. And understand, for those of you out there who puckered up in the face for me saying this, I have to say it. This is not a behavior that is becoming of the children of God. It is not. And the conditions under which those things can even be argued or justified, those are not conditions that we should be creating within our community. There should not be conditions where women are left to be single mothers of 8, 9, 10 children. We should not have community situations where women are being raped, where those things have to be thought about. We should not be having conditions in our community where women are conceiving in sorrow, not being certain whether or not there's going to be a father to raise that child, or whether or not there will be financial support. None of these are things that should be existing within the community of the children of God. So this sort of thing shouldn't even be a consideration. But I digress. Spiritually, they're teaching our women, the midwives, to do the same thing as well. To kill and murder your sons. to take out your issues and your traumas that you had with their father who did not stick around, who did not do you right. You take those out on him so that he no longer has a proper self-esteem. So you kill him from birth. Meanwhile, the devil is sitting back as he's miseducated the men and miseducated the women, and he's leveraged them as a weapon against one another in his divide and conquer strategy. He divides people into gender, right? He divides them via country of origin. He divides them via politics. He divides them via religion. Every way he can possibly divide people, he has divided people. Family, please meditate in the book of the law so that you can understand and recognize the tactics of the devil. And you understand his tactics because they are different than what the Creator Yahweh teaches you. When you start to see chaos in your life as a result of the things that you are practicing, then that is evidence that you are not practicing from the tree of life. You may instead be practicing from the tree of good and evil. Going a little further, let's think about one more thing. There was a time, right? All of these things in the Bible were literal things that occurred in the past, and they repeat themselves. They occur later. They occur a second time and a third time. But there was a thing that occurred during the exile, right? And after the exile, in the days of Ezra, where there was great offense made to the Creator Yahweh because so many were taking on strange wives. And I've heard this argument, and some people take it literal and they think about it like that, and then they think about it like in terms of, oh, it's the men and blah blah blah. Okay, understand that is another divide and conquer tactic. Please do not fall for that. Okay, we are talking about spiritual things. If you are simply a terrestrial, mundane, carnal thinker, I know that many things that I say and many things that we say probably will offend you, but understand that this sort of thing occurred during the days of Ezra, and they're happening again, right? People are taking on strange wives. I want to tell you something. The word wife in this sense that we read in this book, it is a word that is used in the book of Proverbs as well. It talks about the virtuous woman, right? That word, isha, is the same word. When they say wives or woman, isha. And understand that the word for male, right, or a husband, ish, and the word isha, a female or a wife, they come from a particular root that is hidden when you say those two words. The root is anosh. And this root in Hebrew means the feebleness and the weakness and the frailty, right? Not good fortification and strength and honor, any of those things. It means the frail nature. And so when we say wives, that particular root pops up again, nashim, right? And so the strange or foreign wives, as opposed to the virtuous wife or virtuous woman, right? We talked about how the honor and glory and blessings that would come upon you when you have a virtuous wife. So quite naturally, the opposite happens when you have a strange wife. And so it was an abomination to the Lord Yahweh when they took on all these wives from nations after exile. It's important to keep this part apart. It was during exile They took on these wives that they were not supposed to take on. Now, one could say that there's a bit of a spiritual exile that took place, and we may be post-exile. So it's important for us to understand and try to spiritualize this and for our own good, for the edification of our communities, that we not take on strange wives. And this is not just talking about men. I'm talking to the women, the queens out there too. This is for the kings and the queens out there. Do not take on strange wives. I know many of us have taken on strange wives, because when you take on these strange wives, you wind up bringing that stuff into the tabernacle of God, Yahweh. And just like it was mentioned in the book of Ezra, they brought back the reference to King Solomon. They stated how somebody as wise and beloved as King Solomon took on these strange wives that caused him to sin, right? They caused him to sin. And so we take on strange wives and strange ideologies, right? Strange philosophies. Just like the food that I talked about, they cause us to sin, and they cause us to destroy our communities, cause us to pluck our own homes down. And then our homes are in disarray around us, and we don't know why. It's because a strange wife entices you with her words, and you think that she loves you. You think that she's there for your building and for your edification, right? But she is not. She's there simply to perpetuate her strange philosophy, the gods that she brought with her, right? Again, family, if one of you just popped in just now, we are talking spiritually here. There are those around you in the media you consume who seek to miseducate you against your other half. The Creator Yahweh did not design us to be here alone, right? So that should already tell you this idea of men going their own way, right? That's one of them. And this strong, independent woman, you see that? Independent by themselves. Men going their own way by themselves. To tell you that these ideologies are not from Yahweh. They are not from God. So, brothers, sisters, you need to start thinking about this stuff and really considering this stuff before you consume and inculcate this stuff within your mind. I talked about the importance of unity. All of this stuff stands in the way of divine and righteous unity. With that being said, family, I want to step away from that for a moment. And with everything that has occurred, family, just some practical wisdom. Pay attention not only to what's happening, but pay attention to timing. Notice that these things that are occurring in the world jump off at certain times. And for those of you who pay attention to the financial aspect, understand they will happen close to the weekend where the markets close. So just little things like, you saw how the gas just jumped up out of nowhere for most of us. Don't ride around on empty and wait, knowing that the markets froze going into the weekend, and wait till the weekdays to go try to get gas, and all of a sudden it's jumped up another 30-40 cents because the markets reopened, and all of a sudden 20 to 25% of the world's oil is cut off, and now your gas prices are high, and you can't, let's not wait and procrastinate. Let us go to the ant and be wise as we're commanded in the book of Proverbs. Okay? Let us think about this way when we approach all the things in our lives, considering what is occurring in the world today. Family, you must watch what is going on and then pray for guidance, pray for sight and how to move intelligently and wisely through these days. You do not want to be like the foolish virgin, waking up and having a lamp empty of oil when you need it most. I love you all, family. I thank you all for being here with me. We hope to see you very soon with the resumption of the High Holy Days. Please, if you are able, join us in person. If not, join us through Facebook, through the different means, and break bread with us. We pray to see you here. We love you all, family. Peace and blessings be amongst you. Shalom Aleichem and Aniyahah.